everyone in the restaurant's heads turn and then look at us because they're like, well, that's John Lithgow. Who the fuck's that dude?
PowerPoints, power lunches, conference calls, reply to all, endless meetings, constant check-ins, and so much wasted time. Are you sick of the BS? So are we. It's time to take our time back, rework the way we work, and make every call a call to action. This is a podcast for people who want to stop talking and really start connecting. This is After 12.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to After 12, 12 for 12's original podcast series that explores cool companies, brands, messages, and makers, and what compels us to take notice and to become fans. We've got a great show for you today with all the best words. My guest is a celebrated crossword puzzle maker. Since 1996, his puzzles have appeared in the New York Times, Boston Globe, and the Wall Street Journal, to name but a few. He's a regular contributor to the AV Crossword Club, and his puzzles have been mentioned on episodes of the Colbert Report, Jeopardy, and Sunday Night Football. When he's not doing puzzles, he's also a member of the Boston Typewriter Orchestra, a collective which engages in rhythmic typewriter manipulation combined with elements of performance, comedy, and satire. Internet, please join me in welcoming Brendan Emmett Quigley to After 12.
How's it going, Adam?
Good. How are you doing, man?
Living the dream. Living the dream.
Well, how is the dream these days in these strange, nightmarish times?
Well, it's fine. I mean, it's funny, like from a puzzling perspective, it's sort of kind of blown up in a way. A lot of people just suddenly have like a load of time on their hands and they don't really know what to do. And a lot of people have been taking up new projects like, sourdough bread making and crosswords, things like that, stuff I'm already into. So I'm like, hey, what the fuck took you so long? I've only been doing this for years, right? So, but welcome to the world, right?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, you've been constructing puzzles now for over 24 years.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
So I didn't even know you and I went to the same college.
Yeah.
But you were doing this at the University of New Hampshire at the end of your tenure there?
Yeah, I got into it. I've always been sort of a puzzle person. I've always enjoyed solving them. I hadn't really gotten into the word side of it. It was more visual and trivia-based puzzles that I was interested in solving. But going into my senior year, I got really into solving the Times crossword because I had like a really boring job. I worked in a photocopying room in a law firm, and that's like
the definition of hell.
It is a definition of hell, and people of a certain age are going to be like, I don't know what the fuck that means. Does that have anything to do with like buggy whips and stuff? And
what's a photocopier?
Yeah, I mean, what's a law firm, right? So I would, they used to let us listen to music, in previous years, but they, put the foot down and said, no, we had to work in silence. So I needed something to do to pass the time. And I would photocopy the Times crossword every day. I was like awful at it, but I figured, this would be something that'll, occupy me in between jobs. And, like a summer of doing that, dutifully, daily, I got super addicted to it. And I figured, why not? Let me just see if I could even make one of these things. I had like a really lax schedule back then. I think my earliest class was like at 3 p.m, and I only had classes on Monday and Wednesday. So I had like tons of time to kill.
Don't you miss that, Craig? I mean,
yeah, well, when you got a 9-year-old, it's, and you work for yourself, it's like, where does one thing end and the next begin, right? It
exactly.
Just sort of all bleeds together. But yeah, no, so that's it. Yeah, I made them back then, and through stupid luck, I sold the first one to the Times, and
so
here we are.
The first puzzle you had ever made, kind of on a lark, you were able to then sell to the New York Times. Wow.
Yeah.
And
it was just dumb luck. I mean, it was like just beginner's luck. Everything worked. All the rookie mistakes were easily fixable in editing. So it was just stupid luck, really. I mean, there was like a tiny bit of skill, a tiny bit of talent, but most of it was just like right place, right time sort of thing. I mean, this puzzle couldn't be sold anywhere today. But part of that is because the industry has just changed so dramatically in the last, Jesus, I guess it is 25 years. So, I mean, I made it on paper using a dictionary back in the day, and now everything, everything's computer assisted now.
Sure.
So, it's, and as such, puzzles are more ambitious. There's a lot more going on. This one, the one I made, was very right over the plate. There was nothing like particularly, by today's standards, there's nothing particularly out of the ordinary about it.
But it was also the kind of the auspicious introduction to, the master puzzle maker and editor of the New York Times crossword, Will Short, right?
I'm not following the question.
Is that when you first met him?
Yeah, well, I met him. Yes. Yeah. I mean, we've had a long, and, good friendship, mentorship. I've learned tons from him. And it's been great. He's a legend for a reason. So, yeah. I mean, he's got enemies for a reason too, because he's good at what he does.
Right. I'd love to do a little investigative journalism on the enemies of crossword puzzle creators. Like there must be a cloak and dagger, spy versus spy aspect to it.
Exactly. There's men in trench coats, and they're just like putting bombs in each other's mailboxes. It's just like, exactly. If you've ever read Mad Magazine, that's exactly what it's like.
Well, I mean, in nearly a quarter of a century, you've penned thousands of puzzles in various socio-political climates, so.
Yes.
And now we're living in truly intense times with Trump and COVID and racial tension and protests and economic depression and unemployment and natural disasters and no live music, which I know is probably killing you. But since this year, according to KCRW's Madeline Brand, during the coronavirus pandemic, people seem to be doing more puzzles, including jigsaws, crosswords, and the New York Times. Are you feeling this current spike? Are you yourself getting more demands for your own time, your white label puzzling?
I like that. White labeling. That's fun. I'm going to take that.
Actually. Do it. Yeah.
I love it. See, 'cause like the joke I always say is there's like a whole wing of independent puzzle makers, and they are, I sort of call us the craft beer of like puzzle making. There's you get the big brands, the Times, the Wall Street Journal, things like that, and then you've got stuff catered to a very specific audience, and those are the craft beer puzzles, like myself and the AV Club. I mean, there's hundreds popping up every day. It's sort of, how we're at peak IPA, like everybody under the sun has made
hazy IPAs. Yeah.
17 different versions of the same IPA. We've kind of reached that with crosswords as well. So if you can't find a puzzle that's speaking to you, then maybe you just don't like crosswords. But now to answer your question in terms of, have I seen a spike? What I have seen a spike is people who have been, who have written to me and said, life's tough, man. And, you've brought a little bit of enjoyment and entertainment, made me laugh during this pretty exhausting time. And I appreciate that, because I see a little bit of, of trafficking going up and whatnot. But it's sort of a weird industry to be in, because, if you do a live performance, like you're doing a show, or you're doing some stand up, or you're acting or on stage, not like in a movie or something, you hear the audience's reaction immediately.
Right.
They're booing, they're throwing tomatoes, or they're rolling in the aisles, or, uproarious applause. But now with this is a long distance entertainment. I'm in Boston, and you're in Portland, and I don't have any, unless I'm like watching you solve it online on Twitch or something. I have no idea, what tickled you, what stumped you. And so a lot of it's just sort of like, I know I'm entertaining people, and it's just it's going out there, and, there's some blogs I write about it, and, I do read those every now and again, but I don't have any idea what the average person does and how they feel about it. And so what's been fascinating is that a lot of people have written in and said as such just how important it's been to them. So it's nice, and it's also a fascinating industry, because I think it's an entertainment field that speaks to so many such a huge audience, right? And I think we puzzle makers are working our best to try to reflect that. I mean, we're already going to have the mentality of like, write what you know, right? So, I mean, I'm not that into movies, so I'm not going to really write many movie crosswords. And I'm into music, so I'm going to write more music-based crosswords than movie ones. But in all the other stuff that isn't the theme, we try to make a point of sort of drawing from different backgrounds, right?
Right.
So you don't want to just go too sports heavy, too male heavy, you want to have it sort of be a mirror to society, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know where I'm going with this. Do you have any idea where I'm going with this?
No, I think I do.
So,
I mean, you've written thousands of puzzles, and
once you get to like 5, then the number just doesn't mean anything anymore. It just becomes this it's like Watership Down. They run out of digits to count, and then it just becomes infinity. And so I think I've achieved infinity
I think
20 years ago. So I've been beyond the infinite. It's like the last third act of 2001 forever,
Right. Well, I mean, so in 2007, the Boston Globe magazine credited you with making the New York Times crossword hip again, that's 13 years ago. It's 13 years, right?
And there's been so much other new blood since then. I think.
Right.
I'm sorry, I stepped on your question. You can go ahead.
It's okay. So, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, you kind of opened, I think, a floodwater for other hip people to come in as interns at the New York Times magazine or crosswords, or other puzzle makers to start looking at very unique thematic elements. I think for instance, your love and passion of music, and specifically independent labeled music. I remember, you introduced me to Pavement in college, and Sebado and music that I probably wouldn't have heard otherwise, because you either read about it and those photocopied zines, the kind of zines that Mike Fournier used to do. Those zines.
Oh, totally, yeah. But another friend of ours. Yeah, but he's probably watching it. So.
Hopefully, Mike. Hi. The thing is, the crossword puzzle, especially the New York Times crossword puzzle, is iconic. It's ubiquitous. People, again, yes. Like you said, a huge swath of America, reads and plays these puzzles. I guess my first question when I was thinking, what do I want to ask him is how do you come up with your themes? You've done so many different things. Do you worry about oh, I've done this before. Have I? Is it difficult to make sure that you're inspiring yourself? Because I know you too, Brendan, have a very high standard in terms of the work you produce. You're creative.
Well, how does anyone come up with any ideas? I mean, that's the $1 million question for everyone who's creative, right? Aside from the idea tree that we have growing on our porch, it's just having a warped view of the world, really. An idea can come about from anything. It could be maybe someone's trying to say something and their tongue gets tied and it comes out all wrong, and you're like, hey, wait, maybe there's something there if I, go along in that slip of the tongue. Or it might be something that you might read something in the news, and you take whatever is you're reading literally and sort of make riff on that as a theme. I'm trying to think of an example, like, I'm making one for a magazine, and the title is Swing States, and it's where you take a state's name like Minnesota and you swing all the letters around and you get nominates. So you have both of those answers in there. So I've just taken a phrase and go, well, what do you literally do with it? And then that becomes a gimmick. So
I love that.
Yeah, well, thanks. That's the only good one in the whole batch. So,
but I imagine too, just from
Texas and taxes. There's another one.
Texas and taxes. I like that.
But you were saying, yeah.
No, I imagine, right now there is an endless artillery of ideas, and just how bizarre and perverse and just incredibly dystopian the world has become. I mean, I often wonder what the writers at The Onion are able to do with the ridiculous bylines, with, the crazy shit making actual headlines on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, this comes up a lot with other puzzle people. We really are in like a golden era of puzzling, and it's entirely due to the internet. I mean, like when I started making them, I'm an old man. I'm a middle-aged dude, man. So, I had to find a New York Times laying around the student union building back when we were there. So that was the only way to do the Times crossword. Well, nowadays, I mean, it's all on your phones. Yeah. And if you go to the internet and you can type, the Sydney Morning Herald, well, you can pull up that crossword if you want to do it. I mean, you have literally every puzzle accessible to your hands right now. So you'd think that, and then you throw in all the independent puzzle markets and whatnot. You'd think that, well, we've achieved some sort of a saturation of the market. Yeah. But what's amazing about it is that it despite the fact that we have access to everything, and there are all these creative people doing it, everyone is coming at it completely differently and looking at things with a new, different perspective. Like if I said to any of my puzzle colleagues, why don't you make a puzzle about swing states? I can guarantee that we'd probably come up with like 5 different ideas, all of them valid, just using that word. I mean, that's how fertile and creative and immediate the puzzle entertainment industry is right now. It's remarkable. So when it really is a very it's the golden age. The golden age they said before was the 20s, and that's when it was like a big fad. But realistically, today, in terms of ambition and erudition and access, it's crazy. Like I'm friends with a lot of very, 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 very fast solvers. I mean, they can do a New York Times Monday puzzle in 2 minutes on paper.
Wow. Writing
this down, it's like insanity. And I'm also friends with some solvers from whose heyday, unfortunately, I mean, they're still blindingly fast, but they've been supplanted by these
COVID depression.
Yeah, but those people did not have access to like the thousands of puzzles that are accessible nowadays. So it's not uncommon that today's speed solvers, they'll do 15 to 20 a day. And to mere mortals, you go, Jesus Christ, how much time do you have to do anything else? Well, for them, it's like, going to the gym, 45 minutes, bang out, 15 puzzles. You're like, okay, now what? I guess I have to go to the home gym, right?
Right. Well, do you think with the advent of applications too? I mean, we're getting another renaissance. I know back in the middle of this decade, in 2014, the Atlantic published a piece called "Down but Not Out: The Uncertain Future of the Crossword Puzzle" about the history.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to your point about the 1920s, I mean, it was in fad, and flappers who would go to parties and dancing would have that black and white print kind of emulating the crossword puzzle scene.
The Great Gatsby.
The Great Gatsby. There you go. And now it seems like with the fact that everybody has mobile technology, and it's just so much easier, to your point, to get the crossword puzzles. So I mean, I imagine with this current quarantine pandemic that maybe this rise will be something that keeps going into the 2020s.
I mean, who the hell knows, man? It's accessibility and the fact that so many of them are free or next to nothing is always going to be an attractive lure. The crossword is incredibly versatile. Back to my point, I think that I was trying to make when we want to have it be a reflection on society, because it isn't stuck in the 20s. It's still modern. It's still trying to push things forward. It's still trying to be about today, and that's it. I think because of that, it does have legs. Yes, there will be other fads. I think I'm not quite sure when that Atlantic article was. It might have been around the time of Sudoku, which is a phenomenal puzzle. Probably the last really big one to come out.
Yeah.
But at the time when that was a fad, well, I mean, it's a classic. It's going to be there forever. But at the time, that was the big fad thing. So, puzzling moved to Japanese named logic puzzles for, about 6 or 7 months. And then it went, the market corrected itself. It's, it's to write it off is the concern that people have when they write off the crossword is that so many people get into them watching their parents doing a crossword or grandparents, or maybe flipping through a Dead Tree edition and seeing a grid and going, oh, what is this? Let me try to understand this. Mm-hmm. And so they fear that the ritual or the accidental stumbling upon it is going to be missing. But what they don't take into consideration is, you just can't predict what is going to be the fad or the thing that gets your attention that day with the internet. It's just simply impossible. And again,
well, on that note, we have the attention span of gnats now.
Well, that's true. And I think the crossword slows everything down.
Right.
To a point of well, hang on a minute. Let's work on this. Now, because I know the answer to that. That's the character in Orange is the New Black. So let me work off of that, and then see where this goes. And aren't I clever for seeing right through this clue and putting that answer down? And the next thing you know, maybe you get
it hooks you in.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe you're hooked. So, I think it does slow things down, and it's sort of and it does sort of block off. Excuse the pun, because we're working in blocks and grids and stuff. You're like, I'm only going to focus on this. I'm blocking everything else out of the world. And I mean, I think that's one thing I try to do with the puzzles is sort of you find the humor in what's happening, but you don't hit them over the head with it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and they're also time capsules, right? I mean, the references to current culture, the themes that you come up with. I mean, these things are going to last until the next news cycle, and you might forget. But if you go back and play a puzzle from earlier in the year, you're like, oh yeah, the Australian wildfires. that was a big deal.
Right? Yeah. Is that this year? My God.
Do you still solve a lot, Quig?
I do. I solve a lot of weird British puzzles because they make me think differently.
They're different style, right? I mean,
they're totally different.
Yeah.
They're more riddles. They're not American ones. There's a balance between trivia, playing with the language, and straight up dictionary definitions. Whereas, like with British ones, each clue has like some sort of a riddle and to it. It's kind of hard to explain.
No, I've seen the difference. It's definitely a different level of clever, I think, in the British puzzles.
Well, it's just like any other project. It takes a little bit of time to learn how to learn the vocabulary, and then you build off of that. Like crosswords, like American crosswords, are completely arcane to like beginning solvers. I mean, they don't have any idea what half of these answers are but there's like a understanding that there's like a certain amount of vowel heavy answers that we assume everyone knows, like your oleos and your areas and your arias and your epes and your etuis and so on and so forth. I mean, most people are never going to encounter this stuff in real life. I've never cooked with oleo, but you just sort of. But I think until you get into this field, it comes across as this like, foreign language. So I think the same thing with like trying to do like crosswords, and I do think English and British and Australian English is a foreign language.
Yeah,
because they different slang and different spellings and whatnot. So there is an understanding of those in as much as there are the U.S. ones. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
that was a real rambling
how
nonsense
do you,
question.
when you're asked in interviews, how do you describe your style? Do you have a style?
Well, I hope it is challenging but fair. I would hope it is funny. I would hope it makes you look at the world or maybe language a little bit differently than you normally would. I think, I don't know, you're going to find a lot of like music and sports in there. So, I don't know, drinking.
I'm sure you're
I read a whole book about drinking puzzles.
I saw
with my
that.
friend Francis. So
I'm sure you're lamenting the loss of being able to see a baseball game in person. I mean, to go to Fenway.
Not baseball so much, but yeah, no, I know. Yeah, it's tough, man. What are you gonna do?
Are you still, so every week you post 2 crosswords on your website on Monday and Thursday. How long have you been doing that?
Back in, I think it was like December of 2008, something like that. It just seems like forever. It was one of those things that once I did it, I had such an anxiety about doing it that it sort of stopped me from accomplishing. But then once I did it, I was like, oh, geez, I should have done this like 6 years earlier, And I think, there's 2 free puzzles a week. We treating this like Radiohead, who doesn't now? The stuff's for free, and pay what you want, and most people, forget to pay me. So that's how I stay thin, right?
It's your kid B.
Is my kid what?
Kid B, not kid A.
Oh yeah, I'm already down to like kid triple Z, right?
Triple Z, yeah.
Kid B, Kid C, Kid D, all the way down to Kid double A, Kid double B, and so on. But
so you have some pretty serious fans of in your own right that love your style and what you do.
Yeah.
And, in 2017, the actor John Lithgow reached out to you to collaborate. How did that happen?
Well, that was I think it was to celebrate the Times 100th anniversary of running crosswords. And so they had this idea of getting, Will has kept a list of all these celebrities who have, said they like doing the crosswords. And so he thought it would be interesting to try to reach out to them, see if they'd have any interest in making one, and then pair them up with someone. And usually there was like some sort of a linking element to it. Well, I think there's, of course, now that I'm put on the spot, I can't remember any of them, but, obviously, when John Lithgow's name came up, Will immediately thought of me because of all the movies that I've been in, and, I look exactly like John Lithgow, right? People stop me on the street and go, "I loved you in Third Rock from the Sun, man." So,
you played God.
I know, it's right? Yeah. So, no, I think he was. What the reality was is he was in town to film a movie, and he was here for a week or so. We met up, we got dinner. And it was like right out of like a Scorsese movie. It was crazy. Like I got there, like I was like so nervous about meeting this guy that I showed up early, and I was like, man, I better not go to the bar because I'll probably like drink nervously and I'll be like completely trashed. So I was like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. So what there was a coffee shop across the street, and I just got a coffee, and I was like just watching every person go in, and because you figured John Lithgow, he's like, you're going to recognize what he looks like.
He's like 7 feet tall. And
yeah, exactly. So, so I'm watching everyone, and like, he never came in. So I was like, all right, well, the time is now. I better go in and cross the street. And, turns out I knew the guy working at the restaurant. He's like the greeter. So, oh, hey, Brennan, how you doing? And I was like, yeah, I'm here to meet my friend John. And he's like, oh yeah, right this way. And he walks me like through the restaurant. And like all the way in the back, the farthest away from the door, with his back to the wall, facing out so he can see the entire restaurant. There's John Lithgow. He stands up and he's like, I mean, as tall as like, a sequoia. He's like gigantic. And
Sasquatch.
Oh, hey, how you doing? Like shaking my hand, and I'm like, John, nice to meet. And but you could just feel like everyone in the restaurant's heads turn and then look at us because they're like, well, that's John Lithgow. Who the fuck's that dude? And they're like trying to figure this out. And my back's to the restaurant the whole time. So everyone's like, I don't know, man. I can't place him. And it was weird because like immediately to my left there was like a couple, and they were on a date. And she wasn't paying any attention to him. She was looking at our table the entire time because, again, like, it's John Lithgow. Yeah. She got to reach over and touch him. But anyway, so we just talked puzzles, and I mean, he's a very bright and curious man. He did a lot of research. He thought a lot about the types of puzzles that he liked doing. He showed me his app. He had the app, I guess, keeps all your times about how long it takes to do these, and he, dutifully showed me like all these things that, oh, look at how fast I've done these puzzles, and I've done this streak for so long, and it was really remarkable. He, we bounced ideas off each other, pitched them to Will. Will took it. He was there for everything. I showed him this is how you develop a theme. This is how you put them into I guess this is something we should probably say to people who have no idea how to make a puzzle, right?
Yeah.
This goes for like every puzzle on the planet. You start with the thing that the solver ends with, and then you work backwards, and you're done when it's the first thing, when you get the first thing that the solver sees.
Gotcha.
Right? So think about it like this, like a jigsaw puzzle. I'm going to take a photograph of this landscape, and I'm going to cut it up into 1,000 pieces, and then I'm going to give it to you, Adam, and go, put it back together again. So then you put it back together again, you saw the first thing I saw, right? So it's the same thing with a crossword. You start with the solution. Specifically, you start off with the theme, whatever the gimmick is. You flesh that out. You put them in a grid symmetrically, meaning that the grid's going to look the same upside down as it does right side up.
Gotcha.
Do I have one of these lying around? I usually have books.
And the programs that you work with, right? They help you do that too, or?
Yeah, they take all the do all the mechanical stuff, but and then you you fill in answers. You start with the ones that cross as many theme answers as possible, because those are locked in, and then you just work simultaneously across and down until you get to a corner. And then you do up to this corner, and so on and so forth, and then you get the whole thing filled out, and there you go. You write the clues, and then you take away all the answers, and you go, Adam, now you solve it. So,
right.
So back to Lithgow, he was there for the theme development. He was there for the construction of the grid. He wrote all the clues first, and then I wrote a bunch more, and Will wrote a bunch more, and that was it. It was a really fun and fascinating experience. Yeah.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, and to be so well matched with somebody that, you know, is curious and, you know, I don't know, will go to areas and explore different things. I think, you know, he's one of these actors too that, I mean, he's done children's albums, he's directed, he's produced, he's, you know, done serious, he's done, you know, action adventure. So
yeah,
it's cool.
And that actually just came in. That just came across when we were in the room together, that he had that sort of curiosity, you know, and like always wanting to know a little bit more, and you know, pulling in different things from his background. When we were filling in the grid, I mean, I have curated word lists that I can say, well, what would fit in this space that goes blank blank E blank 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 R blank blank blank, and it will list everything in alphabetical order.
Nice.
Everyone does this now. That's how crosswords are made. And when I say curated word lists, I mean I have numerous ones digitized, but there's other websites that you can put in that pattern, and it will search the entire internet, and you can find things that aren't in anyone's word list. And then, of course, you know, you use your mind, right? You use stuff that you just sort of pull from your own experience and see what you can make fit in conjunction with all the other answers in the grid. And what was so the reason I bring this up is that we were looking at some, you know, entry, and there were a couple of letters locked in, and he was thinking about it, and he was like, "Oh, Katisha," and she was a character from what is it from the Three Little Maids from School? Are we? What is it? The Mikado.
Three Blind Mice. What?
The Mikado.
The Mikado. Okay.
And she was like a minor character in the Mikado, but I remember that. Growing up, my parents used to listen to it, so I was like, it wasn't in my word list, and I was like, we got to go with this, because it was a new answer. We love putting new answers in. It was something that he had come up with, and it seemed very much John Lithgow in terms of like, you know, it was a theater term, a term in theater, character in theater, and I don't know. I just loved that answer. I bring that up all the time because it's those are the things you sort of live for when you like you pull an answer out of like thin air, and you're like, oh my God, this is the only thing that would have fit in there, and I'm the only person who would ever think to put that answer in a puzzle.
It's kind of amazing that this kind of convergence of a very analog inspiration, imagination, you know, based kind of process in terms of the themes, and when you do get an original answer, and then kind of having the tools, you know, the technology to find, you know, the placement of the E is the fifth letter of a 10-letter word, you know, like having that kind of at your reference. But I think that analog thing is really interesting. And I do want to shift gears real quick, because not that you have a lot of free time, given that you're doing 2 free puzzles plus all of your white label puzzles plus all of the puzzles you're selling to the different, you know, magazines or puzzle services. I guess I think of the analog, and I think of the typewriter, and I think of your involvement in the Boston Typewriter Orchestra.
Yeah.
Which on the website says the Boston Typewriter Orchestra is a collective endeavor which engages in rhythmic typewriter manipulation combined with elements of performance, comedy, and satire. It aims to entertain the masses while providing an outlet for the creative urges of its members. Tell us about BTO. How did you get involved? How long have you been doing it?
Well, I think it's been 10 years now, actually.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy. But Wait, it might even be longer. It might be 12. I don't know. Again, we're back to Watership Down. I've run out of digits. I can't count. It's like I'm in infinity years beyond the infinite. I've been doing this for a while now. I joined after the fact. They'd been doing this for a while. I'd seen a show or two. They played with an old band of mine. Actually, we did 2 shows with them. And it just seemed like a lot of fun. I've been in bands more or less since like 98 and played various different things over the years. And I wanted to keep doing it, but I also sort of did not want to, I wanted to take all the pressure off, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't want to try to make it. I didn't want to try to load 7 cabinets up and down stairs or a drum kit and whatnot. So I wanted to... And
you had been on tour a lot, too. I mean, I saw you the last time in 2007. Yeah. You were with Campaign for Real Time in L.A.
Down in L.A., yeah. That was right. So that was... I mean, that was fun, but I just kind of got burnt out with it. But as a sort of... I wanted a creative outlet, and I enjoyed the performance end of it, so... I joined the typewriters, and it's funny. It's like the act that let's try that again. So the typewriters, we're a bunch of old lifers, right? We've been doing music in some capacity for a while now, and this was just sort of an outlet to kind of be goofy and have fun with it. And it's like far and away the most successful act that any of us have ever been in. Now, a huge portion of that has to do with it's a novelty, and we acknowledge that it's a novelty act. But we do take it seriously, and we do try to challenge ourselves. And, we've got a new record coming out in September of this year. I don't know when this is going to post, but we recorded with Grammy winner Kurt Ballou up in Salem, Mass. He's a metal guy, and we figured, well, like we have metal typewriters, so let's work with him. And actually, but I don't know. We knew Kurt from back in the day. He's in Converge, and they're like an institution in metal, and certainly in Boston music. So we recorded with him. We did do a metal song. We wrote a blast beat metal song that I sing lyrics to. They're all gibberish nonsense, but it's a showstopper live. And actually now the beard really, I think, sells the idea. I did see a video, and maybe you'll use this in the B-roll of the last show we did. Okay. And I'm just starting to get the beard in it, and when we do Malort, the metal song, it's
Malort, the Chicago-based cocktail.
That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah. One of the guys is from Chicago, and he brought a bottle over, and we were like, "All right, we'll give this a shot." And, yeah, no, that's just not good.
Let them discern. Let them partake.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a creative endeavor in terms of like, we try to figure out new ways to make sounds out of things that aren't really designed. I mean, well, they obviously make sounds, but they're not designed to make sounds. They're designed to communicate. But, we've taken them apart, put them back together again. We've put pipes in there. We've
use sheet metal.
We use them as bongo drums. We throw them on the table. We pick them up and slam them. We are constantly trying to find new ways to coax noises out of this machine. It's basically, I say, it's Stomp meets The Office.
And what's the shelf life of these poor typewriters?
That's a good question. I guess it depends. I'm using one that Kurt gave me, actually, for Kurt Ballou that we recorded with. And that one's like this thing's like a Sherman tank. It's probably like 10 pounds, and it's pretty durable. But the cheap ones that I don't know, maybe like the 60s, 70s models, those don't last very long. So, because I mean, we're like slamming them very hard, but the older ones tend to be a little more durable. We've written a few. Do we have a few songs, or maybe just one? We have one song that uses one specific key that's on one specific typewriter, and that key breaks almost immediately. So we are always looking for that typewriter so that we can do that one live. It's the key is called a power space, and if you push it, it goes, and that's it. That's the only thing it does. And,
Gotcha.
And so we've got a sort of a groove that, it's our stoner jam. There's very much a drum circle element to the Boston Typewriter Orchestra, and so I could imagine that people who are into
well, and there's also
patchouli and hacky sax and smoking copious weed would be like, yeah, man.
Combined with kind of commedia dell'arte, like the Lazzi
totally.
that you guys, I mean, it's kind of extemporaneous. I mean, you've got the bits, every performance. The context is that you are in an office. You wear slacks and white shirts and ties.
Exactly. Yeah.
Bring your pens and notebooks. Gotta write it all down at the staff meeting.
At the staff meeting.
Just a bunch of bullshit. Bring your best ideas and keep them to yourself.
Well, that's the gimmick, is that we're in some typing pool hell, and I mean, I don't know. It's like like in the movie Brazil, where it says like it takes place somewhere in the 20th century. Like that's basically what the BTO is. Like we take place somewhere in the 20th, because like we're talking about like Twitter and shit, but we're on typewriters, and like there's no typewriters left. So it doesn't make any sense. But I don't know. We know it's silly, and we don't take ourselves very seriously, but we take it seriously.
It's awesome. I mean, I guess the one thing I was going to say is you guys don't really perform too much outside of New England. I think you've been to Chicago and DC.
Yeah, been to Chicago and down to DC. That's about it. And it was mostly just because, like I was saying earlier, we don't really. I mean, we all have
day jobs.
Yeah, we're not getting in a van for this. But,
what about an airplane?
Absolutely. I mean, we would definitely do it if we can line it up. But, it's like a Tribe Called Quest said: if there ain't no dough, there ain't no show. So.
Amen. Well, Quig, it's been a total pleasure talking with you. I mean, from words in a puzzle to keys on a typewriter, man, you're definitely doing some really cool stuff. One of the things that I just love about being able to have this little podcast time is to connect with old friends. And I guess my final question for you is, what is a 7-letter word for the rightful student body president of the University of New Hampshire in 1996?
Oh, man. Well, hopefully this does not make it in the...
Quigley. The answer is Quigley.
All right. I'm going to push stop now.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Quig.
No, good seeing you, man. All right. Cheers.